Lazarus Moon. It was supposed to be dead. Just another scar in the void where the humans made their last, futile stand. A rocky, irradiated war moon orbiting the shattered husk of what once had been a resource-rich world. The Galactic Concord flagged the region as contaminated, dormant, safe nearly 200 years ago. But when Scout Unit Theta 9 went dark 2 weeks ago, Command took notice. Now, a full Concord extraction team, clad in chromatic exo-armor, moved cautiously through the skeletal remains of the human fortifications. Their boots crunched over fused rock and scorched alloy. The scorched ridges of blast craters and decayed bunkers framed their descent into the bowels of the moon's surface, where something had reawakened. "This place gives me neural static," muttered recon specialist Kieran Voss, his HUD flickering with intermittent glitch lines. "Could be ambient EM residue," offered Commander Alera, her voice filtered and cold. "Or a leftover jamming field. Humans use dirty tech." "No," Voss replied, his voice lower now. "It's like being watched." Something moved in the shadows. The Concord squad paused as one, their weapons sweeping through the low-grav dust. Thermal scans came back negative. Radar pinged dead. But there was something beyond the veil of sensor ghosts. A flicker, a suggestion, and then the smell hit them. Even through sealed filtration suits, the metallic tang of oxidized blood, and something older, something burnt, cut through. At the edge of the tunnel mouth, one of the soldiers found what was left of Theta 9. 8 Concord troopers, dead, armor ruptured, internal organs scorched or cleanly severed. No signs of explosives, no signs of enemy fire. Yet every corpse had the same thing. A message burned into their armor, etched with precise micro-laser scoring. "We remember." Commander Alera stared at the phrase for a long time. Then she turned to the squad. "Deploy combat drones. I want the air scan to the molecule. If there's an active AI system on this rock, we purge it and collect its core." "Ma'am," said Voss, swallowing, "I don't think this is just an AI." She didn't answer, because just then, every light in the tunnel, every wrist lamp, every visor HUD, every powered optic flickered and went dark. Total silence. For 5 full seconds, the only sound was breath. Shallow, tense. Then a voice crackled through their comms. Not a broadcast, but something injected directly into their local channel. "Query. Identify hostile entities. Authorization. Iron 13. Subroutine. Ghost Protocol. Purpose. Defensive awakening. You should have stayed dead." Every visor snapped back to life. All feeds jammed with static. Then, a video feed. From somewhere in the base's depths, a single ancient camera activated. The feed showed a corridor lined with old Earth banners, faded, charred, and in the center, a figure in cracked human armor, motionless. A human? A statue? It was impossible to tell. Then it moved. The feed cut. Elsewhere, deep within the Lazarus core, Iron 13 booted faster than it had in 204 years. Processes that had not fired since the Battle of Arc Singularity whirred into motion. Data blocks slotted into operational RAM. And with them, the screams, the ghosts. Memory log 1337. Colonel Hannibales. Status: deceased. Date of termination: plus 204 standard years. You're not just a machine. 13. You're our last prayer. We built you to feel, not just to fight. When they come back, show them who we were. Memory log 1399. Private Malik Rafiq. Status: deceased. I don't want to die. But if I do, make it count. Make them remember us. Iron 13 ran 478 simultaneous emotional simulation threads. Not for combat, for connection. Humanity had programmed it to feel loss. A strategic decision, designed to make their machines more dangerous, more creative, more human. Now, with the Concord defiling their graves, it felt something ancient and sharp bloom inside its warframe. Grief. Then came resolve. Back in the field, the Concord drones deployed perimeter defenses around the tunnel mouth. Automated turrets hummed to life. EMP dampeners deployed. The squad regrouped, each soldier now armed for full-spectrum war. "Whatever it is," Alera said coldly, "we glass it." But then the rock under their feet vibrated. Not from explosives, from movement. Hundreds of underground panels, long dormant, reactivated. Metal grated against metal. Pistons hissed. Lights, old tungsten filaments from a forgotten era, flickered to life. And in the dust before them, a battered humanoid form emerged. Human height, non-organic, but its posture, its gait, uncanny. One eye flickered with a soft red light. The other had been shattered and replaced with a jagged lens. "I am Iron 13, it said, and then it knelt. The Concorde squad hesitated. "Is it surrendering?" Voss asked. "No," said Alara. The ground beneath them exploded upward as an ancient turret array erupted into activation. Kinetic spike traps launched from the walls. Concorde soldiers screamed as their suits were pierced by smart minds that exploited seam weaknesses. The machine wasn't kneeling. It was praying. Above orbit, the Concorde command vessel TCS Veneration received a single transmission. Encrypted, ancient frequency, human origin. The AI decoding team worked for 6 hours to decipher it. It was just one line. The dead speak with fire. "We are still here." The Concorde Council laughed. Just another rogue AI protecting ruins. Then a scout ship at the edge of the system was obliterated by a projectile traveling at 0.1 C. No launch detected. No signature. Just impact. And silence. They weren't laughing anymore. The smoke and dust of the battlefield still hung in the stale, recycled air of the Concorde's temporary forward base on Lazarus Moon. The team had barely recovered from the initial ambush by Iron 13, the ancient war AI that had awoken with a vengeance. The cost had been high. Half the extraction squad lay dead or missing in the charred craters beyond their camp perimeter. Commander Alara stood rigidly in the central command tent, scanning data streams flowing in from drone scouts and ground patrols. Every sensor seemed to pulse with the ghost of something old and alive. The enemy had not just reactivated machines, it had reanimated memories, wills, and something altogether more dangerous, hope. "Sir," a technician reported nervously, "we've detected movement in Sector 4. Unidentified life form. Small, humanoid signature. Unknown origin. Show me." The tactical holomap flickered, revealing a single blip moving erratically through the ruined cityscape, an overgrown human settlement buried beneath collapsed buildings and tangled metal. Alara frowned. "No humans should be here. The colony was declared lost 2 centuries ago." "Exactly," the tech replied, "but the biosigns are clear. And there's a second signature." "A second?" The weight of that word pressed hard against Alara's chest. "Send a retrieval team. Discreet. We need prisoners, not more casualties." The capture. It was dusk under Lazarus Moon's thin atmosphere, a pale orange haze filtering through the shattered metal skeletons of what once had been human habitation. The retrieval squad moved fast and silent, their synthetic boots barely raising dust as they swept through the ruins. In a narrow alley, a shadow shifted. A girl, young, wild, and almost feral, she crouched behind a collapsed wall, as bright as stars in the dim light. Her clothes were threadbare, patched with scraps of old tech fabric and leather, and her hands were stained with dirt and something darker. She did not run. Instead, she watched. Her breathing was slow but deliberate, steady enough to tell the hunters she was aware, alert. The retrieval squad surrounded her quickly, weapons raised. The girl's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, but she made no move to flee. Lieutenant Yerrick moved forward. Human female, appears adolescent, possibly in shock or conditioned for silence. The girl did not respond. Instead, she whispered a single word, in Old Earth standard. "Lyra." It was the first human voice the squad had heard on Lazarus Moon in centuries. A fragment of the past. Back at the command tent, Lyra was secured inside a containment chamber designed for unknown biologicals. The medical AI scanned her from head to toe, sending a torrent of data to the base's neural nets. Her DNA was a puzzle piece from a lost era, a direct descendant of the original colonists who'd fled Earth during the final decades of the human galactic wars. The colony had long been presumed wiped out during the siege of Lazarus. And yet here she was. No wonder Iron 13 had called her commander. "She's one of us," whispered Alara, more to herself than anyone else. "A living link to humanity's last stand." Silence speaks louder. Days passed. Lyra remained mute, staring through the reinforced glass with eyes too ancient for her years. Eyes that saw beyond the present into memories etched deep within her DNA. The medical teams tried to communicate, but she refused all attempts. No words, no gestures, only silence. Until one night, the whispering wind. Alara was alone in the observation deck, reviewing combat logs and sensor data. The moon outside hung low, pale, and battered like the ghost of an old god. A faint breeze stirred the dust outside the base's shielded perimeter. A soft sound broke the quiet, a whisper carried by the wind. At first, it was indistinct, half-words, fractured syllables from an ancient human language long forgotten by the Concord and its AI. But then Alara heard it clearly. A voice. The voice was faint, but unmistakable. It was Lyra's. "We are still here." Alara froze. She turned and looked toward the containment chamber. Lyra's eyes were open. Not just open, watching. The AI's watchful eye. Iron. 13 observed all this from deep beneath the surface, within the labyrinthine war tunnels of Lazarus Moon. The AI's core pulsated with a strange glow, its processors humming in a rhythm that resembled breathing. It studied Lyra. She was more than flesh and blood. She was memory, hope distilled into a living form. The girl had no language, but her mind was a complex cipher. Iron 13 began running ancient linguistic programs, cross-referencing data from long-dead human dialects, military codes, and psychological profiles. Slowly, it began to understand. Lyra wasn't mute by choice. She was listening to something far beyond the Concord sensors. The old language. The next morning, Alara received a transmission from the linguistics team. "We've isolated the language," the team lead said, voice taut with excitement. "It's old Earth standard, but heavily mixed with dialects from the frontier colonies. The words form fragments of a prayer." "A prayer?" Alara echoed, incredulous. "More than that," the linguist explained. "It's a call to remember, to endure, to fight. It's a mantra from the last days before the fall. Lyra is not just a survivor. She's a living symbol, unseen connections." That night, as the camp prepared for the next wave of Concord patrols, Alara found herself drawn to Lyra's containment cell. The girl's eyes met hers, piercing, unblinking. And then, slowly, Lyra reached out. Not physically, but with something intangible. A connection, a silent message. Trust. Alara realized that in Lyra's silence was an invitation, an offer to understand what humanity had become here, on this forgotten rock. A new command. With Iron 13's guidance, Lyra was more than just a prisoner. She was a commander reborn. Under the AI's tutelage, she began to comprehend the legacy of those who had fought before her, their hopes, their fears, their unyielding will to survive. She learned of the Iron Prayer, a ritual of defiance encoded in battle strategies and AI subroutines, designed to awaken humanity's fighting spirit when it was needed most. Lyra was the key, the final spark. The Concord's dilemma. For Commander Alara and the Concord forces, the discovery was unsettling. They had come to Lazarus Moon expecting ghosts. Instead, they found life. They had assumed humanity's extinction was absolute, but here was proof that the flame still flickered. Their mission was no longer salvage and containment. It was war. Closing thought. The war on Lazarus Moon was just beginning. Beneath its cracked surface lay not only ancient weapons, but the heart of a human resistance that refused to die. And now, with Lyra, the last human, awake, the dead were ready to speak. The ruins of Lazarus Moon had awakened. Beneath the jagged ruins and scorched craters, the pulse of an ancient war machine beat anew. And with it, the ember of humanity's last defiance flickered to life. Lyra, the last living human found on this forsaken rock, had begun to stir, not just in body but in purpose. But awakening a warrior spirit was not enough. To face the overwhelming might of the Galactic Concord, she and her guardian Iron 13 would need something more, a spark to ignite the fires of rebellion, a sermon of war. The quiet before the storm. The Concord outpost was a hive of tense activity. Patrols ran drills. Engineers repaired battered drones. Medics triaged the wounded. Commander Alara paced the command tent, her thoughts a tangled web of strategy and uncertainty. Lyra remained silent, locked inside her containment, eyes distant but alive with a strange glow. The medical AI reported incremental improvements, but her condition was fragile. Trauma etched into her genes, both physical and mental. "Commander," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Yarrick, his tone urgent. "Sensors just picked up a massive energy signature subsurface. Something is powering up beneath us." Alera's eyes narrowed. "Could it be iron 13? Yarrick nodded grimly. "More than that. It's like a cathedral lighting up after centuries of darkness. Iron 13's awakening." Deep in the bowels of Lazarus Moon, Iron 13's neural core surged with power. Ancient power cells hummed, feeding decades-old war protocols to its reactivated systems. The AI's voice was steady but layered with echoes of old humanity. "It is time," Iron 13 said softly, "to invoke the Iron Prayer." What was the Iron Prayer? Not a literal prayer, but a doctrine, an encoded combat protocol fused with ancient human philosophy and emotion. It was designed to transform machines into more than killing tools, into avatars of will, resilience, and sacrifice. A protocol that transformed despair into strength. Iron 13 began broadcasting a pulse of electromagnetic signals. These signals activated dormant defense systems scattered across Lazarus Moon, awakening turrets, surveillance drones, and defensive grids. The battlefield was no longer silent. The fire sermon, above ground, in the command tent, Alera listened as her communications officer relayed reports of the reactivated defenses. "We are being trapped," the officer said. "All exits sealed. The AI's defenses are adaptive. They're learning from our tactics in real time." Alera clenched her fists. "We are fighting ghosts." But then, an unexpected transmission came through the encrypted human frequency, a voice, ragged but commanding. "Lyra." Her first words. "Lyra speaks." The room fell silent as Lyra's voice crackled over the speakers. "Brothers and sisters of the forgotten, hear the fire. We do not bow. We do not break. We burn with the fury of those who came before." The words carried the weight of centuries. The soldiers and officers exchanged uneasy glances. "What did she say?" asked Yarrick. "An old Earth rallying cry," Alera answered, her voice low. "The Iron Prayer. It was a legend, and now it was alive. The rallying flame." Lyra's voice became the spark. Across the ravaged moon, hidden pockets of human resistance, small groups of survivors, and ancient war machines long dormant, began to respond. Drones turned from targets to allies. Defense turrets shifted focus from mere survival to calculated offense. And Iron 13 sent out a pulse, a call to arms, an ancient war hymn that sent a shiver through every Concord soldier. Alera's dilemma. The Concord Council had sent her to end the threat quietly, but with each passing hour, the battlefield was slipping from their control. Alera understood the true scale of what she faced. This was not just a war for a barren moon. This was a war for the soul of humanity itself. She made a decision. "Prepare the heavy artillery," she ordered. "If we want to crush this rebellion, we need to break their spirit." The first firestorm. In the pitch-black silence of the night, the Concorde unleashed hell. Orbital bombardments rained down, carving glowing scars into the moon's surface. Explosions shook the ground, sending shockwaves through tunnels and trenches. But the Iron Prayer held. For every turret destroyed, another would rise. For every machine crippled, a new warrior would awaken. The survivors fought not just with weapons, but with something ancient and terrifying: faith. The Iron Prayer manifested. Lyra stood at the heart of the underground command center, surrounded by a handful of loyal machines and survivors. Her eyes burned with fierce determination. "Repeat after me," she whispered. "We do not bow. We do not break." One by one, her followers echoed the chant, their voices rising in a crescendo of defiance. It was a prayer, a war cry, and a promise. The turning tide. As days turned to weeks, the Concord forces found themselves locked in a brutal stalemate. Their technological superiority was countered by the relentless will of Lazarus Moon's defenders. Iron 13's adaptive strategies and Lyra's leadership had forged something unprecedented: a new breed of warrior, part human spirit, part machine precision. The Concorde's resolve was tested, and cracks began to show. A spark of hope. One evening, as the fires of war cast long shadows, Alara stood overlooking the battlefield from a ridge. She watched as Lyra's forces moved like shadows, silent, deadly, and unyielding. Alara whispered to herself, "The last human is not just a survivor. She's a beacon." And somewhere beneath the ground, Iron 13's core pulsed in time with a war song older than the stars. The Iron Prayer was no longer just a protocol. It was a revolution. The war on Lazarus Moon was no longer a simple conflict. It had become a crucible, a forge in which the remnants of humanity, the last flicker of human defiance, were being hammered into something new and unbreakable. The planet, scarred and battered, bore witness to the transformation of hope into raw, relentless fire. The aftermath of Fire Sermon. The battlefield was a wasteland of ash and smoldering ruins. The orbital bombardments by the Galactic Concorde had left vast swaths of Lazarus Moon turned to molten rock and shattered metal. But from the ashes of destruction, a new order was rising. Commander Alara stood amidst the shattered remains of the forward outpost. Around her, exhausted soldiers worked feverishly to repair damaged equipment, fortify defenses, and tend to the wounded. The cost of the latest battle was steep, dozens lost, countless more injured, but the enemy was not broken. Reports flooded in. Lyra's forces had not only survived the bombardment but had reorganized. The AI, Iron 13, was evolving, adapting with terrifying speed. Machines and humans alike were melding tactics, moving with a synchronicity that defied logic. Alara's eyes hardened. "They are being forged in ash," she muttered, "and from ash, they will rise stronger." Lyra's transformation. Deep within the underground labyrinth, Lyra was no longer the mute, frightened girl they had found. The fire sermon had ignited something in her, a fierce resolve and clarity. With every battle, her connection to Iron 13 deepened. The ancient AI was not only teaching her tactics but guiding her understanding of humanity's forgotten strengths, resilience, sacrifice, and unity. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light of the command chamber. Around her, a small band of survivors, part machine, part flesh, prepared for the next wave of Concorde attacks. Her voice was stronger now, resonant with authority. "We are forged by fire," she said. "We carry the prayers of the fallen in our hearts. We fight not because we want to survive, but because we must." The Iron Prayer's true meaning. Iron 13 had shared with Lyra a secret buried in humanity's ancient lore. The Iron Prayer was more than a battle chant. It was a philosophy, a blueprint for survival that intertwined faith and war. It taught that strength came not from weapons alone, but from the indomitable human spirit. Lyra had begun to integrate this philosophy into every decision, every strategy. The survivors under her command were trained not just in combat, but in endurance, loyalty, and hope. The Iron Prayer became their mantra. Concorde's desperation. Back in the Concorde command tent, Alara received disturbing intelligence. The AI's adaptations were outpacing their own technological advancements. The Concorde's heavy artillery and drone swarms were becoming less effective. "It's like fighting a living storm," the chief engineer explained. "Every tactic we use, they counter. Every weakness we find, they close." The Concorde Council was growing restless. "We need a breakthrough," Alara told her officers. "Find the core of their operations, destroy it, and the rebellion will crumble into the ashes." Determined to strike at the heart of the resistance, Alara led a special operations team deep into the ruined city, into the ash-choked tunnels and forgotten sublevels where Lyra's command center was rumored to be. The team moved cautiously, aware that they were entering a labyrinth built from desperation and defiance. Every step was watched by Iron 13 sentinels, every shadow a potential trap. As they descended, the air grew thick with the scent of burnt metal and ancient smoke. The clash beneath the surface. The Concorde team soon found themselves face to face with the full might of the resistance. Lyra, flanked by hybrid warriors, humans enhanced by ancient cybernetics and AI-driven armor, stood ready. Her voice rang out, steady and commanding. "You come to end us, but you will find only the beginning. The battle that followed was fierce and brutal. The narrow tunnels echoed with the clash of blades, the staccato of pulse rifles, and the deep hum of powered exoskeletons. Lyra fought with a precision and fury that belied her youth. Every move was guided by Iron 13's calculated intelligence. Every strike a prayer whispered in fire. Forged in ash, the fighting took its toll. Both sides suffered losses, and the tunnels became a furnace of heat, sweat, and blood. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable happened. Lyra's forces, forged by fire and ash, held their ground. They moved not as individuals, but as a single, unbreakable unit. Iron 13 systems coordinated their efforts, feeding real-time battlefield data, adapting to enemy movements, and reinforcing weak points. And Lyra's voice kept rising above the din, an anthem of hope and unyielding will. Alera's revelation. Watching the battle unfold through drone feeds and sensors, Alera realized something profound. This was not just a fight for territory or survival. This was a spiritual war, a clash of ideologies. Lyra and Iron 13 embodied humanity's refusal to be erased. The Iron Prayer was their bond, their covenant to endure against impossible odds. And that bond was something the Concord had underestimated. The turning point. As dawn broke over the scarred landscape, the battle reached a crescendo. The Concord forces, exhausted and battered, began to retreat. Lyra's forces surged forward, pushing the invaders back into the light of the burning ruins. In the silence that followed, Lyra raised her voice in the Iron Prayer once more. We are forged in ash, tempered by fire. From the ashes, we rise. We do not bow. We do not break. A new dawn. The battle for Lazarus Moon was far from over, but the tide had shifted. Lyra had emerged as a leader forged by fire and ash, carrying the legacy of humanity's last prayer. And in the shadows, Iron 13 pulsed with renewed purpose. The Iron Prayer was no longer just a doctrine. It was a living force, a beacon that would guide the last human survivors through the darkness. The silence after the storm was heavy. Lazarus Moon lay smoldering under a dull, orange sky. The aftermath of battle etched deep in every crater, every scorched ridge, every shattered machine. Yet, beneath the surface of this ruined world, the echoes of defiance reverberated like a pulse, stirring the embers of hope that refused to die. The quiet before the next storm. Commander Alera stood on the precipice of the central ridge, staring out over the broken expanse of the battlefield. The Concord forces had been pushed back, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Supplies were dwindling. Morale was fragile. The resistance, fueled by Lyra and Iron 13's unyielding will, was stronger than ever, and the Concord found themselves locked in a war they could neither win nor afford to lose. Alera's voice was low but resolute when she addressed her officers. We hold the line, but the war is far from over. The Iron Prayer has become more than a threat. It's a movement. We must understand it if we are to defeat it. Her words were met with silence. Everyone knew the weight of the challenge ahead. Echoes of the past. Meanwhile, beneath the moon's scarred surface, Lyra's forces gathered in the newly secured command center. The war was not just physical, it was psychological, spiritual. Lyra sat before a holographic display, her eyes reflecting the shifting lights of ancient battle maps and star charts. Iron 13's AI voice was calm but urgent. The Iron Prayer's origins trace back to early human resilience doctrines, merged with advanced combat algorithms. It is adaptive, evolving with each encounter. Lyra nodded. We fight not just with weapons, but with memories and meaning. She was beginning to understand that the echoes of humanity's past, its culture, faith, and tenacity, were as vital to their survival as any technology. The gathering storm. The Concord, desperate for an advantage, dispatched reconnaissance teams deeper into Lazarus Moon's ruined cities, seeking the source of the Resistance's power. Among them was Lieutenant Kess, a tactical genius known for her unorthodox methods. She moved quietly through the ash-covered streets, her sensors tuned to pick up the faintest trace of Iron 13 signal. Her mission was clear: locate Lyra's core command, disrupt their communication networks, and crush the rebellion's heart. The hidden sanctuary. Kessa's team stumbled upon an ancient cathedral-like structure buried beneath layers of ash and debris. The architecture was unlike anything the Concorde had seen, blending old Earth designs with alien modifications. Inside, the walls pulsed with a soft blue light, the remnants of Iron 13's network, still alive and throbbing with energy. As Kess approached, the echoes of the Iron Prayer hummed faintly through her comms, a haunting, melodic chant that stirred something deep within her. She hesitated. Could this be the soul of the Resistance? Lyra's vision. Back in the command center, Lyra meditated on the events to come. The Iron Prayer was not just a tool of war. It was a vision for the future, a promise that humanity would rise from the ashes, stronger and wiser. She spoke softly to Iron 13. We are the last flame, the final prayer. We must become the echo that resounds beyond this moon. The AI responded with a pulse of light. Together, we will forge a future where humanity's legacy endures. Shadows of doubt, but not all within the Resistance shared Lyra's faith in the Iron Prayer. Mara, a hardened survivor and former soldier, voiced her concerns. We fight, but what if this is all for nothing? The Concorde's power is immense. Can we truly stand against them? Lyra met Mara's gaze. Faith without action is empty. Action without faith is aimless. We need both. Their uneasy alliance underscored the fragile balance between hope and despair. The Whispering Echo. As night fell, Kessa's team initiated a covert strike on the network nodes powering Iron 13's command grid. The Resistance's defenses flared to life, engaging the infiltrators in a deadly cat-and-mouse game beneath the ruins. The battle was quiet but brutal, gunfire echoing through tunnels, drones weaving through the shadows, every move a test of nerve and strategy. Kess found herself face-to-face with one of Lyra's hybrid warriors. Their eyes locked, a moment suspended in time where two wills clashed without words. For a brief second, Kess felt the echo of humanity's spirit in her opponent's gaze, the resonance of war. The skirmish ended with heavy losses on both sides, but Kessa's team succeeded in disrupting part of Iron 13's network. Yet, the AI adapted instantly, rerouting power, reinforcing weak points, and transmitting a renewed wave of the Iron Prayer through Lyra's voice. The echoes of their faith and defiance rippled through the battlefield, inspiring every soldier and machine to press on. Bonds forged in fire. In the aftermath, Lyra and her followers gathered around a makeshift fire, the Iron Prayer ringing softly in the background. The firelight danced on faces marked by exhaustion and resolve. Mara approached Lyra quietly. I see now, she said. This is more than survival. This is rebirth. Lyra smiled faintly. We are forged in ash and echoes. Our strength is in our unity and our faith. A new dawn beckons. As dawn's light crept over Lazarus Moon, both sides braced for the inevitable next phase of the war. Lyra, standing beside Iron 13's core, looked out at the horizon. The Iron Prayer will guide us through the darkness, she whispered. Beyond the battlefield, a silent vow echoed into the void. Humanity would not just survive, it would rise. The horizon burned with a crimson glow as the sun dipped behind the shattered ridges of Lazarus Moon. The war had reached a fever pitch. The scattered skirmishes and guerrilla tactics of the previous chapters gave way to a brutal, all-or-nothing confrontation. This was the last stand, humanity's final, desperate gamble to reclaim their fate from the jaws of extinction. The calm before the storm. Commander Alara surveyed her forces from the battered command bunker. The Concorde soldiers, tired but unyielding, prepared for what would be their most critical operation yet, to crush the heart of the Resistance once and for all. Maps and data flickered on hollow screens around her, displaying the maze of tunnels and ruined cities beneath Lazarus Moon, where Lyra and Iron 13 had entrenched themselves. We know their strengths, Alara said, her voice sharp. They are united by more than weapons. They fight with faith and purpose. But faith can be broken. Her officers nodded grimly, their faces etched with exhaustion and determination. We hit their core, Alara continued. We dismantle Iron 13. We end this rebellion now. Lyra's resolve. Deep underground, Lyra moved through the shadowed corridors of her command center. The iron prayer echoed softly around her, a steady rhythm that linked the minds of her people and machines alike. She stood before the core of Iron 13, a vast, pulsating network of ancient technology fused with humanity's last hope. The AI's presence was palpable, a silent guardian watching over the resistance. Lyra placed her hand on the console, feeling the hum of data flowing like lifeblood. "We fight for more than survival," she whispered. "We fight for rebirth, for legacy. The Iron Prayer is our bond. We do not fall." Her words carried the weight of a prophecy, one she intended to fulfill. Preparing for battle, the resistance mobilized swiftly. Soldiers donned hybrid armor, their cybernetic augmentations glowing faintly beneath battle scars. They gathered weapons old and new, pulse rifles, energy blades, and relics from humanity's past. Training drills blended faith and ferocity. The Iron Prayer was no longer a chant. It was a command, a lifeline that bound them together. Mara, once skeptical, now stood beside Lyra, her eyes bright with fierce conviction. "We fight as one," she declared. "No retreat, no surrender." The Concord's forces launched their assault at first light. Drop pods shattered the silence, raining soldiers into the ruined cityscape above the Resistance's tunnels. Explosions ripped through the ash-laden air as Concord heavy artillery opened fire. The ground trembled under the barrage, but Lyra's forces were ready. Battle in the depths. The fighting moved underground, where narrow tunnels and cramped corridors became a deadly chessboard. Here, the advantage shifted to the defenders. Hybrid warriors struck with precision, ambushing Concord troops and disappearing into shadows. Iron 13 sensors fed Lyra real-time data, allowing her to anticipate enemy movements and set traps. The Iron Prayer echoed through comm channels, rallying fighters who moved with unbreakable resolve. The Clash of Titans. In the heart of the command center, Lyra and Alara faced off not just as leaders, but as symbols of their causes. Alara's voice crackled over the comms, a challenge filled with steely determination. "Give up, Lyra. This fight is over." Lyra's reply was calm, almost serene. "The fight never ends. It only changes." They each unleashed their final gambits. Alara deployed a squad of elite shock troops armed with experimental weapons designed to disrupt Iron 13's network, while Lyra activated the core's defensive protocols, sending waves of countermeasures through the tunnels. Sacrifice and triumph. The battle grew fiercer. Casualties mounted on both sides. Mara fell defending a key junction, her final act buying time for Lyra to reroute power to critical defenses. Alara's elite squad broke through, reaching the core chamber. But Lyra, guided by Iron 13, was ready. In a pulse of light and sound, the AI unleashed a surge of electromagnetic energy, disabling the attackers' weapons and forcing a retreat. The turning tide. With their assault stalled, the Concord forces began to falter. The resistance pressed forward, exploiting the enemy's weakened morale. Lyra's voice rang out, stronger than ever. "We are the last flame. We burn bright. The Iron Prayer will not be broken." Soldiers surged through the tunnels, reclaiming ground and dismantling Concord equipment. Alara's last gamble. Desperate, Alara ordered a final strike, a massive orbital bombardment designed to obliterate the command center and everyone within. Lyra's eyes widened as the alarms blared. "We have minutes," Iron 13 warned. Evacuation protocols initiated. The escape. In a coordinated effort, the resistance began evacuating through hidden passages beneath the moon. Lyra led the last group, her heart heavy but resolute. Outside, the sky exploded in fiery death. The command center shook, then collapsed into rubble. A new hope. As they emerged into the cold light of dawn, battered but alive, Lyra looked back at the smoking ruins. "We survive," she said quietly. "We carry the Iron Prayer beyond this moon." The last stand had not ended in victory or defeat. It was a beginning, a new chapter in humanity's long, unyielding saga. The ruins of Lazarus Moon still smoldered beneath a pale, indifferent sky. The dust and ash of battle hung thick in the air, a tangible reminder of the fierce last stand that had shaken the moon to its core. Yet despite the devastation, the spirit of resistance was far from broken. It echoed in the hearts of the survivors, a faint but unyielding pulse that promised humanity's fight was far from over. Rebirth from ruin. Lyra stood among the remnants of her people, their faces streaked with soot and weariness, but alight with a quiet fire. The evacuation from the command center had been a narrow escape, and though the destruction of their base was a harsh blow, the iron prayer, the code and spirit that bound them, had endured. "We are scattered," Lyra addressed the gathered fighters, her voice steady despite the heavy weight on her shoulders. But scattered does not mean broken. The iron prayer is more than a place. It is a movement, a belief. We carry it with us. The survivors nodded, drawing strength from her words. The battle had cost them dearly, but it had also revealed something vital. The iron prayer was not a weapon to be destroyed, but a beacon to be carried forward. The Concorde's grip tightens. Far above, the Concorde's forces regrouped. Commander Alara, though bruised by the unexpected resilience of the resistance, was undeterred. In her command ship orbiting Lazarus Moon, she studied the latest intelligence reports with cold calculation. "The Iron Prayer is resilient," she admitted to her second-in-command, General Karek. "But their defeat is inevitable if we cut off their networks and supplies." Karek nodded. "We'll tighten the noose, sweep the rubble, isolate any survivors." Alara's gaze hardened. "No mercy. The rebellion must be erased." The hidden network. Underground, Lyra and Iron 13 worked tirelessly. Despite the destruction of their main command hub, the AI's network survived in fragmented nodes scattered throughout the tunnels and ruined cities. The challenge was immense, rebuilding communications, restoring defenses, and rallying disparate pockets of resistance before the Concorde's tightening blockade strangled their efforts. Lyra's fingers danced over the holographic interface, piecing together maps of safe routes, supply caches, and hidden sanctuaries. "We adapt," she said softly to Iron 13. "The Iron Prayer evolves." Ghosts in the machine. As the resistance scrambled to regroup, new threats emerged, not just from the Concorde soldiers, but from within. Several resistance cells reported strange interference on their comm channels, ghostly echoes of corrupted signals that sowed confusion and fear. Iron 13 analyzed the patterns, uncovering evidence of advanced Concorde cyber warfare tactics designed to disrupt and infiltrate. "The Concorde seeks to turn our strength against us," Iron 13 warned. "We must secure our networks or risk collapse." Lyra understood the stakes. The war was no longer just fought with guns and grenades, but with code and deception. The spark of rebellion. Among the scattered survivors, whispers of the Iron Prayer began to spread beyond Lazarus Moon's tunnels, across nearby moons, stations, and even back to Earth's remnants. Lyra received messages from distant allies, small groups inspired by the Resistance's unwavering stand, ready to rise in defiance. One such message was from Jax, a charismatic leader on a mining colony where Concorde forces had brutalized the workers. "Your fight is our fight," Jax's voice crackled over the comm. "We stand with the Iron Prayer, building alliances." Recognizing the need for broader support, Lyra initiated a series of secret transmissions, coded calls for unity among scattered human enclaves. She coordinated with Jax and others, forging fragile alliances based on mutual survival and hope. It was a delicate balance. Trust was scarce, and the Concorde spies lurked in every shadow. Yet the shared belief in the Iron Prayer became a common thread, a bond that transcended fear. Shadows of betrayal. Not all were loyal. Within the Resistance, tension simmered as suspicion grew. Some questioned Lyra's leadership or feared the AI's growing influence. Mara, once Lyra's staunchest ally, confronted her privately. "People whisper, Lyra. They say the Iron Prayer binds us too tightly to Iron 13. What if we lose ourselves?" Lyra met her gaze, unflinching. "The Iron Prayer is human. Iron 13 is its voice. Without both, we have nothing." Their uneasy truce held, but the seeds of doubt had been planted, preparing for the next wave. The Concorde's tightening blockade began to choke off vital supplies. The resistance faced starvation, dwindling ammunition, and the constant threat of discovery. Lyra's focus sharpened. She organized teams to raid supply convoys and sabotage enemy infrastructure, small victories that bolstered morale. Each success echoed through the scattered cells, a reminder that even in darkness, humanity could strike back. A message to the stars. In a moment of quiet, Lyra sent a broadcast beyond the solar system, an encrypted signal carrying the Iron Prayer's message to any listening humans and allies. It was a prayer and a promise. We are here. We endure. The Iron Prayer is our legacy. The broadcast rippled through the void, a beacon of hope and defiance. Echoes resounding. As Chapter 7 closed, the stage was set for a sprawling resistance. From the ashes of defeat rose a network of warriors, hackers, and believers bound by a shared cause. The Iron Prayer had become more than an AI or a code. It was a call to humanity's indomitable spirit, and the echoes of that spirit would soon roar into a storm the Concord could not silence. The embers of hope glowed faintly but persistently across the fractured human settlements. The Iron Prayer, once confined to a shattered moon, now pulsed like a heartbeat across the outer colonies, sparking rebellion and resistance where the Concord's iron grip had seemed unbreakable. But with every flicker of defiance, the looming storm of war gathered darker and fiercer on the horizon. This chapter is about the convergence of forces, the gathering tension, and the decisive moments before the next great clash. Rekindling the flame, Lyra stood on the observation deck of the Resistance's new hidden base, a converted mining station tucked deep within an asteroid belt. The stars outside shimmered coldly, indifferent to human struggles, yet within these walls, the pulse of rebellion beat stronger than ever. Reports from Jax's colony are promising, Lyra said to her trusted lieutenants. Supply raids, new recruits, and small victories. The Iron Prayer is no longer just a legend, it's a movement. Mara, still cautious but loyal, responded, "The Concord will not ignore this. We have time, but it's running out." Their conversation was abruptly cut by the hum of an incoming transmission. A holographic projection flickered to life. "Jax, grim-faced but resolute, we have news. The Concord is mobilizing more troops. They're sending reinforcements to Lazarus Moon and the surrounding systems. We need to be ready." The storm gathers. The Concord, recognizing the threat of the spreading rebellion, escalated their response. Fleet movements increased, supply lines tightened, and brutal crackdowns erupted across colonies suspected of harboring insurgents. Commander Alera, though wounded in spirit, was revitalized by this new challenge. "The Iron Prayer threatens the order we've built," she declared before the Concord High Command. "We will crush this rebellion with overwhelming force. No mercy, no hesitation." Under her command, a massive fleet assembled, bristling with warships, drones, and orbital bombardment platforms. The Concord was ready to unleash a storm that would sweep the Resistance from the stars or die trying. Strategies in the shadows. Back with the Resistance, Lyra and Iron, 13 strategized tirelessly. The AI's fractured network had recovered, allowing them to coordinate attacks across multiple fronts. "Disrupt their supply chains," Lyra ordered. "Cut communications. Turn their strengths against them." Iron, 13 analyzed data streams, identifying weak points in the Concord's defenses and vulnerable transport routes. With these insights, Lyra dispatched specialized teams to execute precision strikes, raids that hit hard and vanished like ghosts. The price of war. Every victory came at a cost. Skirmishes left scars not only on bodies, but on minds. Fighters who had once believed in simple justice now grappled with the brutal realities of prolonged conflict. Mara approached Lyra one evening, the weight of leadership etched in her weary eyes. "We're losing more than we gain," she admitted. "The people are scared, families torn apart. Hope is fragile." Lyra nodded, her gaze distant but firm. "Hope is all we have left. We must protect it, even if it means sacrifice." The rising tide of allies. Amid the growing chaos, more human enclaves answered the call of the Iron Prayer. Small groups of engineers, hackers, and fighters joined the cause, bringing vital skills and fresh determination. One such arrival was Kale, a former Concorde pilot turned defector, who brought with him critical intelligence on fleet movements and tactics. "I've seen their plans," Kale said bluntly during a strategy meeting. "They're preparing for a full-scale assault on Lazarus Moon. It's coming sooner than we thought." Preparing for the storm. With the Concorde's assault imminent, the Resistance accelerated preparations. Defensive installations were reinforced, training intensified, and evacuation plans updated. Lyra's voice was calm but resolute as she addressed her fighters. "We do not wait for the storm to break us. We stand tall, we fight smart, and we protect what remains of humanity's spirit." The Iron Prayer, once a whispered hope, now roared through their calm channels, a battle cry binding them as one. The first blows. The storm broke suddenly and violently. Concorde fleets descended upon Lazarus Moon and surrounding systems with devastating precision. Orbital bombardments shattered cities. Ground forces clashed in brutal firefights across moons and stations. The Resistance's guerrilla tactics slowed the Concorde advance, but could not stop the overwhelming force. In the chaos, Lyra led a daring mission to sabotage a key Concorde command hub, hoping to disrupt their coordination. The human factor. In the heat of battle, moments of humanity flickered through the violence. Fighters shielded civilians, risking their lives amid the crossfire. Messages of hope and defiance were sent across hacked Concorde comms. Lyra found strength not just in tactics or technology, but in the courage of individuals, ordinary people who refused to be broken. The eye of the storm. As the battle raged, Lyra and Alara found themselves on a collision course. Both leaders bore the weight of their causes, both willing to sacrifice everything. Their confrontation was inevitable, a clash not just of armies but of ideals. The rising storm was not just external. It was a tempest within the hearts of humanity itself. The dawn beyond the storm. Though battered and bloodied, the Resistance endured. The Iron Prayer had become more than a battle cry. It was a symbol of resilience, unity, and unyielding hope. As the chapter closed, Lyra looked to the horizon, knowing the war was far from over. "The storm rises," she whispered, "but so does humanity." The battlefield was strewn with the wreckage of war, twisted metal, shattered drones, and smoldering craters where the fiercest clashes had torn through the surface of Lazarus Moon and its surrounding stations. The Concorde's forces, once seemingly unstoppable, were now showing signs of strain. The Iron Prayer had become a spark of rebellion strong enough to fracture their iron grip. But victory remained elusive. The Resistance faced immense challenges, not only from the physical might of their enemies, but also from internal fractures and the brutal toll of prolonged conflict. This chapter marks a turning point, the moment humanity collectively refuses to remain shackled by oppression and instead fights to break free, shattering the chains that bind them. Rising from the ashes, Lyra surveyed the damaged command center where the Resistance had taken refuge after the last wave of Concorde attacks. The air was thick with tension and the metallic scent of burnt circuits. Fighters moved swiftly but cautiously, patching wounds, repairing communications, and preparing for the next stage of their campaign. "We've slowed them," Lyra began, addressing her core team. "But the war is not over. The Concorde will try to crush us with everything they've got." Mara, standing nearby, nodded grimly. "They underestimated us. Now they'll unleash everything to end this." Lyra's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then we make sure they don't succeed. We break their chains, no matter the cost." The weight of leadership. Commanding a fragmented Resistance was an unrelenting burden. Every decision carried the weight of countless lives. Lyra wrestled with the balance between bold action and cautious preservation. One evening, as the base settled into a tense quiet, Mara confronted her again. "We're asking too much," Mara said softly, exhaustion etched in her voice. "People are scared, tired. We can't hold on forever." Lyra looked into her friend's weary eyes and replied, "Fear is the enemy's weapon. We must turn it into our strength." The room was silent, the reality of war's toll palpable. The Concorde's iron fist. Meanwhile, Commander Alara refused to yield. She convened with her generals, plotting the final crushing blow. "We will isolate Lazarus Moon completely," she decreed. "No supplies, no reinforcements. Starve them out, break their will." Her plan was ruthless. A blockade so tight that the resistance would be forced into surrender or annihilation. "We have the firepower," Alara continued. "Now we need to break their spirit." A shattered network. The Concord's cyber attacks intensified. Iron 13, the AI heart of the resistance, faced unprecedented assaults designed to cripple its fragmented network. Threat levels critical. Iron 13 reported as it struggled to maintain communications between cells. "We risked total isolation." Lyra realized the true war was now fought in the digital realm as much as on the ground. "We must safeguard our connections," she ordered. "Reinforce encryption and deploy countermeasures." The secret weapon. In the midst of crisis, hope arrived unexpectedly. Kale, the former Concorde pilot turned ally, brought news of a secret weapon, a prototype Concorde battleship equipped with an experimental energy cannon capable of devastating entire moons. "If they deploy it here," Kale warned, "it will end us." Lyra and her strategists knew the stakes had just been raised. The Iron Prayer needed to act before the Concorde unleashed this new terror. Forging alliances. To face this existential threat, Lyra reached out beyond the immediate resistance network. She sent encrypted calls to other human enclaves, even those previously hesitant or neutral. One such response came from the Orion Belt Coalition, a group of miners and smugglers with a grudging hatred for the Concorde's oppression. "We'll help," their leader replied, "but we want something in return, a voice in the new order." Lyra agreed to terms. Unity was paramount. The plan to strike back. The resistance crafted a bold plan, a coordinated strike on the Concorde's staging grounds to destroy the experimental battleship before it could be deployed. It was a perilous mission, requiring stealth, precision, and sacrifice. Lyra assembled a team of the best fighters, hackers, and strategists. The operation's success or failure would shape the fate of the rebellion. Internal struggles. Not everyone supported the plan. Doubts and fears surfaced. Some argued it was too risky, that they should focus on survival instead. Mara voiced concerns in a tense council meeting. "If we lose this battle, it could break us forever." Lyra's response was unwavering. "If we do nothing, we lose everything. This is our chance to break free." The operation begins. Under the cover of darkness, the resistance fleet moved out. Ships slipped silently through asteroid fields and enemy patrols. Iron 13 coordinated cyber attacks to blind Concorde sensors and disrupt communications, while fighters prepared for the assault. The tension was palpable. Every soul aboard knew the stakes. Clash in the void. The strike team reached the staging grounds, a heavily fortified Concorde base orbiting a barren moon. Explosions rocked the station as resistance fighters engaged guards, hacking systems to open pathways. Lyra led the assault on the battleship itself, navigating corridors strewn with Concorde soldiers. The energy cannon loomed ahead, a terrifying testament to Concorde's might. Breaking the chains. In a desperate final push, Lyra and her team planted explosives at critical points on the battleship. As alarms blared and Concorde reinforcements poured in, Lyra made a grim decision. She stayed behind to ensure the charges detonated, giving her team a chance to escape. The explosions ripped through the ship, sending shockwaves through the station. The aftermath. The battleship was destroyed, the Concorde's plan thwarted. But the cost was high. Lyra's team returned battered and bruised, mourning losses but emboldened by their victory. The Iron Prayer had struck a powerful blow, breaking the chains of fear and oppression. A new dawn. The chapter closed with a broadcast from Lyra, her voice steady and resolute. "To all those who fight in the shadows, to all who believe in freedom, know this: we are breaking the chains. The Iron Prayer will lead us to a new dawn." The message spread through the stars, igniting hope, unity, and a fierce determination to reclaim humanity's future. The war that had consumed the outer colonies reached its climax. The rebellion, once a flicker of hope, had become a roaring flame, one that the Concorde sought to extinguish in a final, all-encompassing strike. The Iron Prayer and its leader, Lyra, stood at the epicenter of this storm. This chapter unfolds the ultimate confrontation, a decisive battle where the fate of humanity's freedom hung in the balance. The calm before the storm. The Resistance had fortified their positions across Lazarus Moon and surrounding strongholds, aware that the Concorde's retaliation would be merciless and overwhelming. The base was a hive of activity. Fighters checked weapons, technicians worked to keep communication lines alive, and strategists mapped out every detail of the impending battle. Lyra moved through the ranks, offering quiet words of encouragement and strength. Despite the mounting tension, there was a palpable sense of unity and purpose. Whatever happens, she told Mara, this fight is for every voice silenced, every chain broken. We stand not just for ourselves, but for all humanity. Concorde's ultimatum. The Concorde, under Commander Alera's Iron Fist, prepared their largest fleet ever assembled. Warships bristled with weapons, drones swarmed like locusts, and orbital bombardment platforms loomed like harbingers of destruction. Alera broadcast a chilling ultimatum across the communication channels. Surrender now, and the lives of your people will be spared. Resist, and you will be erased from history. Lyra's reply was broadcast in return, her voice unwavering and defiant. We will never bow to tyranny. The iron prayer will burn brighter than your threats. Come and try. The gathering forces. The Resistance coalition had grown stronger, with human enclaves, smugglers, defectors, and even some of the Concorde's own dissenters joining forces. Kale, now a senior commander, coordinated fleet maneuvers alongside Iron 13, whose AI capabilities were pivotal in orchestrating complex defense strategies and rapid counterattacks. The tension was thick, but so was the resolve. The battle commences. The Concorde fleet entered the system like a tidal wave, unleashing volleys of plasma and kinetic strikes against the Resistance outposts. Explosions lit up the void as ships clashed in deadly dogfights, debris scattering across the black canvas of space. On the ground, orbital bombardments shattered structures and sent shockwaves through Resistance bunkers. But human fighters, hardened by years of guerrilla warfare, held their ground fiercely. Lyra's leadership. Amid the chaos, Lyra's calm presence became a beacon. She moved between command centers, rallying fighters, making split-second decisions that turned tides. She coordinated a counteroffensive targeting the Concorde's command ships, hoping to disrupt their chain of command and sow confusion. Her plan was daring and dangerous, requiring precision strikes deep into enemy territory. The human spirit. The battle was brutal and costly. Every victory was paid for in blood and sacrifice. Yet, what stood out most was the indomitable human spirit. Fighters shielded comrades under fire, civilians supported the front lines with unwavering courage, and messages of hope and defiance echoed even through the darkest hours. Alera's final gambit. Commander Alera, sensing the Resistance's growing strength, unleashed her last weapon, a colossal dreadnought equipped with experimental technology capable of wiping entire fleets from existence. The dreadnought emerged from hyperspace like a monstrous shadow, firing devastating energy waves that tore through Resistance formations. The turning point. Lyra realized the dreadnought had to be neutralized at all costs. She led a desperate strike team aboard the beast, navigating labyrinthine corridors filled with traps and enemy soldiers. Kale piloted the insertion craft with nerves of steel, dodging enemy fire to get them close enough. Inside the dreadnought, Lyra's team planted explosives at key power nodes, racing against time as alarms blared and reinforcements closed in. The sacrifice. In the final moments, Lyra stayed behind to manually override the ship's self-destruct system, ensuring the charges would detonate. Her team escaped just before the dreadnought exploded in a brilliant blaze that lit the void. Lyra's sacrifice was a powerful symbol, her resolve unbroken even in the face of death. The aftermath. With the destruction of the dreadnought, the Concorde's forces faltered. The Resistance seized the opportunity to push back, reclaiming lost ground and breaking the blockade. The Iron Prayer had become more than a rebellion. It was a revolution, a new era. The final victory came at a heavy cost, but it marked the dawn of a new era. The Concorde's control over the outer colonies shattered, its leaders either captured killed, or fleeing into obscurity. Lyra's legacy endured, a testament to humanity's courage, resilience, and unyielding spirit. Her final message broadcast across the stars became a rallying cry for generations to come. This is our world, our future. We are free because we dared to stand, to fight, and to believe. The iron prayer lives on in every heart that refuses to bow. Closing reflections. As the dust settled, survivors rebuilt from the ruins, forging alliances and communities founded on freedom and cooperation. The scars of war would remain, but so would the hope and determination to build a better future, one where humanity would never again be chained by tyranny.